Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the Tesla Roadster version of our podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. Welcome, everybody.
And as always, if you have questions, chime in. We'll try to get to them all, read them all. And if you have inputs, we'd love to hear from you. Today's image is a leaking lithium ion 18650 cell. And the reason that we put that up as a background is it's the theme of today's show. It's in our thumbnail, and we'll get to that in a moment here. But the thing I wanted to lead with was we do short videos here oftentimes. In fact, probably daily. Wouldn't you say, Aaron? Do you do one a day these days? Are you there, Aaron?
Yeah. Sorry, I was getting some stuff done. Yeah, I think we got about one a day going on right now. Yeah.
And one of them was one on the electrolytic capacitors in a power electronics module on a Tesla Roadster. And typically what happens is I'll be standing by a PEM. It's opened up and showing the three-phase boards, showing the 21 electrolytic capacitors, showing some of the stuff that has to be replaced if you're doing a rebuild, and the importance of doing a rebuild on the electronics in a Tesla Roadster. We're the people that actually brought electronics expertise to the automotive world in the world of Tesla and Tesla Roadsters. The mechanical approach is a bit different than the electronics approach. Different reasons for changing things. Different things fail. It's no longer about mechanical wear and tear. It's about electronics that are failing. And we've been talking about electrolytic capacitors as being one of the components that needs to be replaced because we've been in the critical power business for 40 years, and in that world, people proactively change electrolytic caps because they tend to fail, they leak, and they become resistive. So we did this video, and someone chimed in, John Mears, and he says, and he shows a picture of a circuit board here, Jesse. Can you bring up Electrolytic Caps -2? He says, just think, 25 to 30 years, they will leak and corrode the hell out of the boards if the Teslas last that long. He says, electrolytic capacitors, the nightmare of my life. I fix ECUs, 1990s through 2000, Toyota, Mazda, Nissans, etc. Here's a guy that's in the business. He's seeing 20, 30-year-old boards, and he's seeing the caps, failing and leaking and causing problems. And that picture there shows to the left is a small electrolytic capacitor. Now, the caps that are in a power electronics module in a Roadster are about 4 to 5 times the size of that little cap there, which makes it even more sensitive.
Sure. In fact, if not more, aren't they about the size of a D-cell battery?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison. There's a second picture here, Electrolytic Caps 1, and you can see the what the leakage does to the etches and the traces on the board. And here he's talking about it gets so bad that the electrolyte actually will remove the copper traces. I don't think we're in the. Yeah, okay, that is the right picture.
That's the right picture.
It was actually the first picture, Jesse, and if we can go back there.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, you can see that, the etches are removed there as well.
Yes.
And of course, when you remove an etch, that's a connecting point between, signals and components, and the product fails. So I thought it was interesting that we've got someone that actually repairs this stuff on equipment that's even older than the Tesla Roadster, and he's showing us what the end result of not changing electrolytic capacitors are. And the reason I'm so adamant about this is there are people in the Roadster repair business that don't believe in changing capacitors because they've never seen one fail. Wrong. Timeout. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, just because they haven't seen something happen doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Right, exactly. Got some questions coming up here. Instagram, Thomas80 says hi. He's greeting us. Thank you. Instagram, Lokesh8484. Hi, this is Lokesh.
Glad to have you.
And Mike Aldia is joining us. Michael, I'm so glad you're here because we're going to get into that leaking cap portion here in a moment, and we definitely want your inputs there. Michael was one of the original Tesla Roadster battery experts, repairing them, modifying them, changing out the rivets, and repairing them fundamentally, and also involved in some of the design aspects. He went to work for some other companies in the meantime, and he's been very instrumental in EV battery design. So I'm glad you're with us. We also have Niels from Denmark with us, from the Bion Danish Genome Institute. Niels loves these podcasts because he says, I learned something here.
Yes.
So, all right, let's talk about this leaking battery that's on our thumbnail. This one is in a sheet. It's sheet 11, brick number 8. And in VIN 99. VIN 99, I'm not going to bore you with the whole story here, but it was a car that was provided to a commercial property owner in Malibu, and or Santa Monica, sorry.
Yes.
It was the first Tesla service and sales building, and Jim owned the building and initially refused to give Tesla the opportunity to lease the building because their financials didn't look that great. It wasn't until Elon came out with a satchel full of patents and convinced him to allow them to lease under some conditions, and one of them was that they sell him one of the first Signature 100 cars. So he received 99, wanted 100, but 100 was already taken. Well, VIN 99 still has the original ESS pack from 2008. And a few months ago, it began to lose range after every charge. It was down to 24 miles, which is indicative of a resistive cell. Out of 6,831 cells in a Tesla Roadster battery pack, it only takes one to begin to decrease the range because the battery safety management system is carefully monitoring all the bricks to see if there's an imbalance. And if there is, it then suspects there's a problem with the cell, it's resistive, and you don't want to overcharge a resistive cell because it causes fires. So it turns out that VIN 99 was down to 24 miles. It came here, and we opened it up, and sure enough, we found a cell. And that's what that picture is that we have on the thumbnail. If we can bring up that picture as well, Jesse, it's leaky cell -3. Now, normally a resistive cell looks nothing like this. If you look at the rusted one on the right, and then the one right here, this is normally what a resistive cell looks like. You can't tell the difference, but electronically, it has resistance compared to the other cells, and it becomes parasitic. What it actually does is it will drain the other 68 cells in that brick. A brick is a collection of 69 cells, and the battery safety management system senses this and then does not allow a charge, full charge, based on the severity of that imbalance between the bricks. Sometimes, and this has only happened a half a dozen times in our 10-year career repairing Tesla Roadsters, you will get this corrosion leakage, that rusty look that's on the cell to the right. And again, this is an aberration. It is not the norm. It does not appear to be indicative of what end of life will be, because in 10 years we've seen 6,
Right.
and we open up at least 2 battery packs per week. So we see lots of cells, we see lots of bricks and sheets. But we wanted to point out that the symptom with a cell like this looks just like a resistive cell because it becomes parasitic.
I've seen in really unusual cases, and we had read about as well when we were doing the diagnosis on the 2016 packs, resistive cells or cells with impedance could actually even reverse polarity. Just an odd feature. The electrolyte gets so built up on the wrong ends that it actually reverses the polarity of the batteries.
And we actually have a 2016 R80 pack Roadster in the shop right now that it has bricks that are actually a reverse polarity at this point. We are finding that the 2016 pack, 2015 and 2016s, are a completely different than the original ESS packs. Remember, VIN99 has a battery in it from 2008, 18 years ago. Yeah, I'm sorry, 16 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's still going strong, as are many, many other Roadsters that have the original battery packs in them. So this leaking cell is truly a one of. It is an aberration, and in all the time we've been doing this, only 6 of them have looked like this. So I asked Michael Aldea, who was there back in the day with the development and the service of the Tesla Roadster battery packs. I said, how often did you guys see this back then? This kind of rusting that we're, seeing infrequently. He says, I've never seen it happen on a Roadster pack, but I've seen it during durability testing on other packs. Michael's actually in the audience here, so if you have anything to add, Michael, this would be a great time to do that. And thanks, as always, for your participation. So back in the day, apparently, the Roadster packs that he worked on did not have this kind of rusty cell condition. All right.
We have a couple more comments that have come in, and a good question from Niels. First, though, on Instagram, Catter2 says this is a great video, so thank you for joining us. On TikTok, Tracks Electronic Brain says regarding that circuit board, he says easy to repair traces. A Day Lucky on Instagram says hi. And then Niels on YouTube says, I've avoided getting cars with computers and electronics because I think they all fail over time. Is that true? And because of the high repair cost. That we need a primitive, safe, economic, repairable car.
Well, I agree with you there, Nails. We need a easily repairable car, but anything will fail over time. It's just a different type of failure. The ICE cars, it's a lot of mechanical. With these EVs, it's going to be batteries and electronics.
Sure. Yeah, it totally is. And I remember seeing a comment on one of the forums posted that we were talking, where it was information was relevant to today. And the person said, when it comes to talking about primitive car, we've had that already. The Volkswagen Bug. Very simple engine, air-cooled, super easy to repair, lasts a long time. Yeah, I have to agree.
And then, of course, the first electric cars, they weren't in this century, they were in the last century, 1907, for example.
Yes.
The taxi cabs in some of the big cities like New York were electric cars. Very simple design, batteries, DC motor, and then you had basically a potentiometer that would, control the speed. So we have an interesting question here from Lindolfo Jr., YouTube. He says, please, where can I find a course online that can teach me how to repair any car battery? I don't know of any courses. Our trajectory, repairing, doing the types of repairs we do on the Roadsters, were a lot of empirical data. It was reverse engineering. We'll throw up an image here, Jesse. If you can throw up leak cell-7. We can get back into why are they using lithium ion cells, for example, in EVs? Well, lithium ion cells store more energy in smaller spaces than the traditional lead-acid batteries or the nickel metal hydride ones, making them ideal for automotive uses, unlike the 1907 electric cars, where you truly had lead-acid batteries, sulfuric acid sloshing around. Lithium-ion batteries also are used in the automotive industry for the following reasons. They're generally much lighter than other types of rechargeable batteries of the same size. Lithium is also highly reactive, meaning a lot of energy can be stored in its atomic bonds. unlike lead acid, where you need a much larger footprint. And this is one of the reasons we keep asking in the critical power business where we're in, why aren't they switching over to lithium ion technology, in a large measure? We don't know the answer to that. Only the OEMs can answer that. But they're using much heavier, larger batteries. Lithium ion batteries also have a combined advantage of higher energy density, range, and power acceleration. That it punches a lot of, it holds a lot of punch and power. They have no memory effect, which means that completely discharging is not required before recharging. In fact, you don't want to do that to a lithium ion cell, because in the 4-volt cells, if you get below 2 volts, you begin a destructive chemical process, which damages the cell. And another great feature of a lithium ion cell is it has a very slow self-discharge when not in use. And I can attest to that. We've had cars sitting here, collision damaged cars, for example, even Tesla Model S's, that have sat here for a year or two. And when we fire that battery back up, it is perfectly intact.
Yes.
Compared to a lead acid battery, which would be dead within 3 to 6 months.
I think of that 100 kilowatt battery that we dropped out of a Tesla, that we got it, thought we could repair it. It had been in seawater. We found that we couldn't. And what was it, 6 years later, we dropped the battery just because, and went and tested it, and the battery was still holding a significant charge. It was fine. There was no ingress of water, and the battery is in great shape.
Another image that we can pop up here, Jesse, is lithium ion battery construction. And here you can see what the 18650 cell consists of. There is a positive electrode, a negative electrode, and an electrolyte. The positive electrode, or the cathode as it's also known, is lithium cobalt oxide. The negative electrode, or the anode, is carbon. And a separator that separates positive and the negative electrodes. And the electrolyte is organic solvent with lithium salts. And there's a cutaway view of the 18650 cell. So what we did to repair VIN 99, we, of course, had a visual on that cell, which, by the way, is very uncommon. In our world, to find a resistive cell is like a needle in a haystack, because you essentially have 69 cells connected in parallel. When you connect something in parallel, all the pluses and minuses are connected together, and they all look the same.
Right.
In a series configuration, you can go to each cell and take an individual reading because your plus and minus is intact. It's not connected in the same way in parallel. So in this case, it made the isolation and finding that cell very easy because we had a visual on it. Normally, we have to use sensitive equipment to try to isolate that cell. The fix was snipping the fusible link wire on one side or both sides, and that brick came right back to life. It's currently charging, it's balanced, and that car is going to go back to the owner here shortly.
Very cool. One other comment for Lindolfo on his question about college or courses. Didn't Tesla put out some courses or partner with some colleges here in the U.S. to get some EV training?
They did, and there's an acronym that for the life of me, I cannot remember now. Spark or something like that.
I don't remember either.
I don't either, right?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's START. I don't know what it
START.
stands for.
You're right.
START.
Well, the problem, the reason I don't remember is the acronym did not match what it stands for.
Right.
It probably did at one time, but then they upgraded and changed it. But yes, Tesla was instrumental in partnering with a number of learning institutions to create some form of a curriculum for EV repair. I haven't heard much about it in the last 6 months or so.
I haven't either. But so Lindolfo, there is some information out there. I don't know if it will help to repair specific car batteries, but it would be a start.
Yeah. And well, let me preface something here. these learning institutions may not be focusing on repairing car batteries because, unfortunately, the car battery repair business has become a throwaway type, process.
Yeah, very good point.
And even though they're extraordinarily expensive for a Tesla Model S, if you buy a new battery pack, it's $22,000. Oftentimes for cars that are 10 years old that are worth 25. So repair is definitely something of value. In a Tesla Roadster, it's a bit different. Everything is accessible, everything is available, and we've perfected processes on being able to repair those right down to the cell level, along with the Tesla Model S, by the way, which, although a bit more difficult to extract the modules out of the pack and then reseal them, the Roadster was really a plug and play type, battery pack,
Very, very much was.
a repairable. All right, I think we've got some questions here. I'll let you get those.
Yeah, Niels again on YouTube says newer ICE cars are terrible with electronics failures too. Anything after 1990 almost, and Niels, I would say into the 1980s because I've had 1980s cars that have electronics that have gone bad. Remanufacturers, he continues, he says, remanufacturers cannot redo electronics, only mechanics. So the cars end up dead. Scrap because of a detail. Yes, that is definitely true. He goes on to say, if you guys can scroll his question up a little bit, compare that with the 500,000 Ford Model A's that are still running. Now that it's not practical and economic today, of course, but think of research and simplicity, how it was stopped by environmental rules with just the opposite effect.
Good point,
Good
Niels.
point.
Yeah.
And he's, as always, it seems like, Niels, you're exactly on point with that. Highlander on YouTube also says it's amazing how fast the battery technology and metrology is changing. It definitely is.
And then Instagram, Miss June 117 says, hello, thanks for joining us. So the electronics are repairable. They're rebuildable. It's one of the things we do with Tesla Roadsters. Where the risk begins to increase is in parts that are no longer available. For example, a chip manufacturer is commissioned to make a particular type of large-scale integration chip for a manufacturer. Well, technology improves continuously. And as the volume or the demand for that part decreases because they've built a whole, batch of cars with it, and they've moved on to other vehicles, eventually those parts become obsolete and they're no longer in inventory.
Right.
That's where the risk is in the world of electronics repairs. If it's something like a resistor, fuse, electrolytic capacitor, a choke, a transformer, those parts oftentimes are still available. Even the old tube stuff from the 50s and 60s, you can still get certain types of tubes. You may have to go to Russia these days to get them, though, because they're one of the few countries that are still producing tubes, it turns out. But things like resistors underneath and the mica capacitors, the electrolytics, those are still available. Rectifiers, semiconductors. So you're right. I think Niels was saying that with a Model A, it was a very simple product. It was 100% mechanical. There were no electronics in there.
Right.
It was later on that you began to insert electronics. One of the things that I am concerned about with the Tesla Roadster, at this point, we're still able to repair the electronics in the cars, but there are certain parts that are becoming difficult to get. The output transistors, for example, for the PEM, the IGBTs, those are becoming scarce. And oftentimes we have to go to China, overseas, and find a distributor that has old stock on hand. You can't go to the manufacturers and ask them to redo a production run on a semiconductor device that is obsolete because they're going to have an extraordinarily high minimum order quantity, which most companies cannot meet, especially in the aftermarket where we're, for the Tesla Roadster, we have 2,000 customers around the world. that isn't enough to attract, a reproduction of either circuit boards or certain components that are now obsolete. We do have some solutions, though, and we'll probably talk about those in future podcasts about how to keep the Tesla Roadster on the road despite having shortage of certain types of parts. All right, here's where we get into the cars for sale stage. Well, there is a Tesla Roadster currently on Bring a Trailer. It's a 3,200 mile 2010 Sport 2.0. Last time we checked, it was $69,000, and it's about to end in a couple hours, I think.
Yeah, it's about 2.5 hours. As of right now, it is at $69,420
Okay.
on bid.
Jesse, it's VIN 971. If you can bring up a picture of that. It is a Thunder Gray Roadster, gray seats, silver wheels. It's got the turbine wheels, which are cool. And Bring a Trailer typically is not going to do a great job with valuation.
Which VIN?
It's called VIN 971.
Okay.
This was one that escaped us. It wasn't even in our database, so apparently this owner did not know about us. The Roadster Matchmaking site is something we would have offered him for free to help sell his Roadster. And it will be completing here in 2 hours, you were saying?
Yeah, roughly 2.5 hours. It'd be 1 p.m. Pacific time.
All right. And, it's at $69,000 right now, which means nothing. Smart Money doesn't bid during the process of the auction. They wait until the last few minutes, and who knows where this will end up. And we're hoping that it does better than $69,000 or $70,000. All right. Then we have one that's on the Roadster Matchmaking site, just got posted last night. That is VIN 1230, Jesse. That's also in the picture library. VIN 1230 is a radiant red. It's located in Oakton, Virginia. It's a 2011. It has, let me see if I can get a better shot of it here, and I'll give you the mileage on it. It's got 19,000 miles on the odometer. The charge range in standard mode is 171 miles. That's pretty good. The owner has not yet given us the calculated amp hour capacity, the CAC, and we'll add that as soon as we get that information. So this Roadster is currently available from Oakton, Virginia, and it's on the Tesla Roadster Matchmaking site. Then we have a Roadster that just finished bidding. It was the carbon fiber Roadster. And it reached a lofty price of $182,000.
That's pretty impressive, especially considering it was a salvage title car.
Mm-hmm. And in this market, in fact, Jesse, if you can bring up another image under BAT sales, Bring a Trailer sales, and we tend to use BAT as a benchmark for auctions because it used to be eBay was busy with selling Roadsters. And, when Barrett Jackson does their thing twice a year, there may be a Roadster there, but Bring a Trailer is probably the most active auction site. And you can see some of the prices here that were that were fetching on Bring a Trailer. 110 for that 2008 was good. That was April of 2024. But then another one just before then was $75,000. For a 2008. Then we had a 2010 that sold for $71,000. I think that one had 2 iterations because the owner was not happy with the price and there was a reserve apparently. Then there was a 19,000 mile Roadster that sold for $88,000. That was pretty good. Another one for $69,000, a 2010. That was in February of this year. And then in January, one sold for $86,000, a 2.5 Sport. In January, also, we had a 2011 that sold for $135,000. And that was a pristine car. That attracted a lot of attention.
Yes.
And then there was another one, a 41,000 mile Roadster in January that sold for $85,000. So for one to get up to $182,000, of course, it was a pedigreed car. In many ways, it was a one of. It had carbon fiber overlay, And it's not too hard to figure out what the reserve was most likely here. Most likely an even number like 200K. One of the questions that was asked of the one of the sellers, Jameson Cummings, by the way, he was one of the early Tesla, the first Tesla technician, actually. We had him on our podcast about a half a year or so ago. And the question was, well, if Tesla was going to build a special Tesla Roadster with a lot of features in it that they may want to market later on, better brakes, for example, limited slip differential. Why did they not take a non-salvage car to create this special, one-of car? Well, the way that that Jameson answers it, he says, if you understood the story of the car and the situation at the time, Tesla nor anyone was going to alter a perfectly sellable Roadster to build this car.
Right.
The pressure back then was, we need all the revenue we can get. We're on the verge of bankruptcy. We need to make payroll. So we're not going to take something that we can sell, spend a lot of time developing it, and to create this car. So he says money was very tight. I was there. The actual damage was just body panels and no structural work was performed. And so they took this collision damaged car and put carbon fiber overlays on it and all of these other unique items to hopefully create an aftermarket business for Tesla, which then got scrubbed. The conjecture is that it was Elon that put a hold on this and said, we're not going to spend money. We're not going to take that direction, because at that time, they were really focused on the Model S development, thinking this was their future car, the car that was going to appeal to the masses and the one that they could have a sustainable auto manufacturing process with. So it'll be interesting to see if this thing goes out to bid again, or whether there will be some post-auction negotiation with the bidder that took it to 182. In other words, is he going to pay more for the car? And will the car sell that way?
We'll see. I'm very impressed that the car got as high as it did, and glad to see that, because that's always good for the community to see these cars going for higher dollar amounts.
It is indeed. All right, we've got a picture to post up here of one of the Roadster owners, Jesse, and this one is called Logan's car. Let's go to Logan-1.
And while that image is coming up, we've got a couple more comments coming in on YouTube. Highlander saying, with advanced technology in printing, are you able to replicate a lot of these obsolete parts regardless of the manufacturer?
What we're able to replicate is 3D printing parts that no longer have the original molds. But to replicate chips and semiconductor, there's just no way to. There's no 3D printing for that available yet.
Right. There just isn't there yet. He does also comment that when we were talking about the vacuum tubes, reminds me of when I was working on machine tools that had an RCA vacuum tube. However, they said USSR on them, not Russia. I remember with amplifiers, you want the Russian tubes. They're better quality. They have a nice warmer sound. So if you can get your hands on a Russian-made tube, Polish tubes are pretty good as well. They're very good as well, European-made.
Really interesting. All right, there we go. That is Logan Rodrian's car. He's up in Colorado, I believe, and this is not a Tesla factory color, this purple. In fact, in the Mopar world, this was called Plum Crazy. And it was popular on the Cudas of the day and some of the Hemi cars. But it is definitely a striking color. There's another image here, which is Logan-2, if we can bring that up. And apparently, this was a racing event. It was a Pride-themed autocross with the Porsche Club. And Logan brought his Roadster. What one of the other Roadster owners asked, actually Eric in Texas, Eric Robertson, he says, I know I've asked you this before, but what brand of wrap film is that? Looks almost like paint. My wife wants our Model S wrapped, and I've been slacking. So the answer was, this is Aura. And I think Logan is in the wrap business, by the way. That's probably one of the reasons that he's able to create
Okay.
exquisite
Okay.
examples like this. It is called Aura, A-U-R-A. They're ultra gloss. He says it's a pita to work with. It's pain in the ass. Can I say that?
Yeah, I think so.
But because it's so thick, he says, but it's also calendared versus cast, so it shrinks and pulls back edges a lot. But they have amazing colors and options. Those of you interested and like this look, this glossy, thicker wrap look, you can go to a website called auravinyl.com. And they have a wonderful selection of galleries there. They even have chrome versions of this
Wow.
in colors, not just chrome mirror type, but
Yeah.
actual pigment in it as well. So good choice there, Logan. And quite a car you have there. We've been working with a couple of people now on this Roadster to NACS conversion project. And I hate to admit, but sometimes we throw in the towel and say, we're going to need some extra help here.
Yeah.
And we got Henry Sharp involved, which is a good thing because Henry was one of the original charge port or charge embellishment on the Tesla Roadster with his CAN products, CAN Junior and CAN Senior. Did a lot of research, talking to the same vendors that we're talking to now. And he's also involved in this NACS conversion, as is Marco Nolte in Germany. And the latest is that we've got Henry now talking to the Amphenol engineers, and they're going to try to come up with a solution for the hot disconnect issue. We felt that it was important to replicate the turning off of the charge signal before the plug is retrieved out of the charge port door, and using the same locking mechanism that's on the Model S. So anyway, what Marco says, we were talking about not just the NACS conversion. There's a picture here we can throw up, Jesse. It's called Marco 1. And he has his Tesla Roadster prototype with his replacement battery pack that he's been test driving. And he has cables going into the top of the battery pack in that picture there.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted us all to know the big opening in the back of the ESS pack is just there for prototype and is being used for commissioning reasons. And it's also to show that it's not the original battery in there. He also says, so it only will be there in the exact pack, not necessarily cut apart like the other ESS enclosure in the future. So it sounds like he's going to use the original ESS battery enclosure and then just simply make the modifications inside. And then with the NACS inlet, he's also considering going with the NACS plug rather than the CCS2.
I thought that was an interesting take, but he likes the size of it.
Mm-hmm. He says NACS seems to be quite new. Only very few manufacturers make them, so none of the ones I found would actually fit in the Roadster, as a problem again is losing the actuator. This time the problem isn't the way to control it, but the size and position. But he does say, let me know when you have a NACS inlet ready. I'm thinking of using NACS for the European Roadster also, since it's such a nice and tiny inlet.
Sure, and that charging inlet and that inlet door, that's not very big on the Roadster.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely anything here in North America, CCS1 would not work, and CCS2 in Europe is about the same size. I could see definitely why he would have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm. Jesse, if we can throw up a VIN number 289. We have a Thunder Gray Roadster on the Roadster Matchmaking site. It's in Concord Township, Ohio, the 2008. And the price has just been lowered from $89,000 to $79,000. Now it's in bring a trailer territory.
Yeah, that's a really motivated seller here.
It should help it move. The CAC on this one is 147. Not bad. Mileage is 35,750. Right. Oh, you know
No,
what?
3,575.
3,500. Oh, this car should sell.
Yeah, definitely should.
This is a low mileage Roadster. I thought it was 35,000. You're right, 3,500 miles with a good CAC. So anyway, go to the Roadster Matchmaking site. Don't let this one get away. If you're looking for a nice low mileage Roadster, this might just be your car. And there are, of course, plenty of other pictures.
We might want to double check that battery size that we have listed. It says 40 kilowatt hours. And I know that the Roadster only comes in 2 sizes, and 40 kilowatt is neither of those 2 sizes.
It's 53K. Yeah, and we'll fix that. I'm surprised that's still out there because I thought that was a fix we did some time ago on this one. Then we've got some questions coming in. Niels from Denmark saying exactly, and simple mechanical replacements for complicated electronic systems even exist. For example, there are carburetors just as good as EFI.
That's a good point that Niels makes on that. Sometimes it's easier to just replace the more complex system with the easier system, kind of the Occam's razor type of approach, where the simplest answer is the right answer.
Right. Instagram, Luna, the English lady, is joining us. She says, what is the MSRP? And I think we're talking about the Tesla Roadsters here.
I think so.
You know, the lowest price, it was actually the first advertised price was $109,000. And we've seen highly optioned Roadsters, saw a build sheet actually, for an electric blue, $157,000. And that's if you throw in all the carbon fiber and 2.5 and, you know, the executive leather and a sport Roadster. It starts to add up. All right. Well, we are past that half-hour mark. We hope you enjoyed this session. And we will have we'll have more for you next week.
Look forward to it very much. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you next week.